Hey everyone, welcome back in another episode of Believe in Vikings. This one is for today, Tuesday, January 14th. I'm your host, Mike Wobschall, joined as always by my partner and my co-host, Bryant McKinnie. It's a BMAC Monday, but on a Tuesday as BMAC joins me, per usual, the day after a Vikings game to break down what we saw and what is ahead. This one was a Monday nighter to cap off wildcard weekend, but it was also, unfortunately, a season ender as the Vikings fall to the Rams by a count of 27-9. BMAC and I are here to react to it and to break it all down. We'll do that in a minute. But first, BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC. Head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Hey, B-Mac, how's it going, man?
Going pretty good.
That's good. Not a fun one. Yeah, we were texting yesterday about recording today and about the game, and I think I said, I can't remember what I said, but tough look, man, or bad game, and I don't know what else there
Yeah,
is to
ugly
say.
game.
Well, I don't know what else there is to say, man.
Yeah. The Rams kind of came out just scoring right away, and we've had trouble scoring on offense since the last game. And I feel like
Yeah,
they're having that type of momentum going into the playoffs kind of, isn't the best.
yeah,
I remember hearing a commentator say at one point it's been like 21 different series without a touchdown.
yeah.
And that's just that momentum going into the playoffs is not a good momentum to have, not being able to score. Um, and then wasn't able to correct it too in the first playoff game. So that's how the end result ended up being what it was.
Yeah. How do you explain a team playing so well for 17 games and then the two biggest games of the season, they're kind of duds? What do you attribute that to? I know they
I
played
don't
good
know.
teams. They played
I,
good teams. That's part of it. But
they play good teams. I feel like they played both of those teams better the first time they played them.
yeah, yeah,
And I felt like now you have another opportunity to kind of right your wrong against the team. So I felt like you would come out a little more fired up, or even with a better game plan.
yeah.
Um, and it just didn't happen. They weren't able to execute.
Yeah, the contrast on how Sam Darnold played all season to how he played in those last two games is just so stark. I tallied up the numbers, not that any of us want to hear them, but he had one touchdown and one interception in the last two games combined, and only 411 passing yards in the last two games combined, and he took 9 sacks. BMAC.
Mhm.
I mean, sacks they're not just an offensive line stat or a quarterback stat, right? I mean, receivers got to get open.
Mhm.
Play callers got to call the right play. Line and quarterback got to get in the right protection. Line's got to block, and the quarterback's got to get rid of the ball. All those
Mhm.
things have to happen. But you and I you haven't sat down and watched any tape of this game. You couldn't have. The game was just last night. I haven't either.
Mhm.
It looked to me like Sam wasn't throwing, like he wasn't cutting it loose. I think a lot
I
of
do feel
those,
like the ball was being held a little
yeah,
long
yeah,
at times. And not even just this game. I feel like even the last game too, it was times where the ball was being held. I think he was trying to wait to like hold on to make plays, but also you have to remember a time clock has to go off in your head too of the offensive line having to hold off of the defender, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So holding the ball a long time can result into eventually having a sack.
yeah. And I could see the frustration on Kevin O'Connell's face. I'm not going to project or pretend to know I know what he was frustrated about, but the sense I got was like, you got to throw the ball, man. And I think I could see that on Kevin's face when the TV would show him after a sack. And so, I'm not sure if Sam just, if Detroit and Los Angeles, their looks were surprising them, if they were, just unscouted looks or looks they didn't expect. I mean, that could certainly be the case because whatever
Mhm.
Detroit did last week, BMAC, I'm sure LA took a look at that and was like, hey, we got to try this,
Well, I
right?
already said that. I already said that it's a copycat league. So
Yeah.
if it worked for Detroit, they're gonna continue to do it until the Minnesota can show that they can stop it. And if they're not stopping it, they're not gonna stop. They're gonna continue to do it because it's gonna work for them. So um, I'm pretty sure they definitely had some plays that they mimicked from Detroit and had success with it and just used it against them as well.
Yeah. I think the Rams started out so hot in that game. Vikings defense settled down a little bit, and then the Rams had such a comfortable lead. I think they took their foot off the gas and kind of coasted a little bit. In the second half, it seemed to me like the Rams were just trying to get time off the clock. I don't think they really were
Mhm.
sticking to their game plan. I think they were just in this mode of let's shorten this game, and Vikings just couldn't get anything going. Crazy thing is
Yeah,
the Vikings didn't have a drive with more than 2 first downs until the third quarter. So just not very good.
yeah, I definitely feel like the first half. Well, I'm gonna say the second half, the defense definitely settled down. I think we only scored like 3 points in the second half, maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So, but it's just the offense just couldn't get anything going. So that was the main thing. Like, you had a chance to kind of come back in the second half. Defense kind of settled them down, and it's just like the offense just couldn't get any momentum going. I think they were like going with the 3 yard line at one point and just couldn't get in there.
Yep. Yeah, impressive performance by the Rams defensive front. They got a really young defensive line, so that unit's going to be good for a long time to come. And an unimpressive performance by the Vikings offensive line. I don't think we can lay everything at the feet of the offensive line. That's not fair, and we certainly wouldn't do that here
Mhm.
because of your background. I do think it was interesting, though. Kevin O'Connell was pretty honest in the post-game press conference, and he said we got to shore things up on the interior of our offensive line. And so I do think he demonstrated some frustration there. Brian O'Neill was pretty good at right tackle all season. And then you
Mhm.
got to give a lot of credit to Cam Robinson at left tackle for coming in a trade middle of the season and playing the way he did when Christian Darrisaw goes down. I mean, you lose Christian Darrisaw the way the Vikings did, that's a big problem. I mean, left
Mhm.
tackle, all pro. So those, I think they did okay on the edge, but we're definitely going to see some free agent signings. I think BMAC in the offseason in the interior of the Vikings offensive line. And I'm not blaming them all for it, but I could just tell that Kevin O'Connell is frustrated. So it'll be interesting to see what the Vikings do at both guard positions and at center this offseason as they utilize free agency in the draft. The other thing that stood out to me about this BMAC, and it does every season, no matter how your season ends, is just the sudden finality when the NFL season ends for you. It's pretty jarring, isn't it?
It's just like instantly, like
Yeah,
you go in the game not sure because I mean, Tom West had hit me up earlier and was like, prior to the game, like, hey, in case we go to Philadelphia, would you be able to make it up to Philly? So I'm like, oh yeah. So I
yeah,
started like low key getting my mind right for that. But then when I tuned into the game, I was like, oh,
yeah,
doesn't look like it's going that direction.
yeah. You can still go to Philly if you want, but you're not going to be watching the
No
Vikings.
thanks. No thanks.
And Ben Lieber does the radio, does sideline radio for the Vikings.
Mhm.
And so after the games, he's interviewing players, and there was a pretty emotional interview that he did with Harrison Smith. Because there's question if Harrison will be back or not. He might retire. And you could hear it in Harrison's voice, like this might be the end. It might not be
Mhm.
for him. He may come back for one more year, but like he said, this is the most fun I've had on a team, playing football. And, you could tell the Vikings were a fun group. They had fun with the celebrations. They were winning a lot of games.
They did.
Yeah. And when this thing ends, man, it's so sudden because you've been with these guys. I mean, you can talk about it. You've been with these guys since August every day, right?
Mhm.
And then it ends. It's just like it's almost like you don't know what to do from here. Um, Walk us through sort of what it's like what's going to happen today for the Vikings. They're going to come to the facility, and what happens?
And you have your exit meeting, your exit physicals to just see how you are, whether or not you have to stay and do rehab or if you need any surgeries or anything like that. So they do an
Yeah,
exit physical to check you out before you leave. And then you go home and close your house out. And
yeah,
whether you're staying in Minnesota or you're going to another city, wherever you're from, and you start your off season. So you start your training or you may take a break from it for a little bit. And some guys are getting ready for the Pro Bowl, things like that. So it's just now you're just on your break, and now you have time to sit back and reflect. Now you get to watch everybody else too,
yeah.
continue their playoff journey, and You got time to think and start preparing for next season and
Yeah.
figuring out what it is you want to do. Whether if you're Harrison Smith and if you plan on coming back, if you have another year in you, or just a lot of decision making time.
Yeah. What was so for most of your career, BMAC, you had some contract things that would come up, but I mean, you had a pretty good feeling you'd be back with the team that you were with for the most part, on average.
For the most
So
part, yeah, I always felt like. I mean, I always knew I was coming back. Like
yeah,
even when I got traded, I knew I was coming back that year. They just wanted me to.
yeah. So so are you texting? Are you calling like your position coach or your head coach much during the off season? Like, what's the communication like, or do you take a break from stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm not talking to him much at all. If anything, I'm gonna talk to my agent. But once the off season
Yep.
is over, a lot of that conversation between me and my agent, he'll let me know where I stand or what.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like a true like separation for a little while. And yeah, it's like I guess it feels a lot like a reset, maybe,
It definitely
right?
is. They'll reach out to like your coach will reach out to you and like kind of let you know like say a little something because after they watch the last game they'll kind of reach out to you and say like how you played and things like that. But they'll check on you here and there though. They're not
Yeah,
going to just not say nothing. They'll check on you. They'll send you like a text here and there. Just I guess see where your mind's at too though. But yeah, for the
yeah,
most part, I kind of always know I was coming back.
yeah. Would you go to like Super Bowl week? Would you do Radio Row and all
Yeah,
that
I've
stuff when
done
you
it
were
a few
playing?
times. You don't never go to the game though, but you go to all the events leading up to the game. You try to get out of there during the game so you can avoid traffic, stuff like that. But you'll go to different
Yeah,
events because people have you come host stuff or just show up to events stuff while you're there. So yeah, I've done that.
yeah, yeah. I think for the
We need to get
Vikings,
on
it'll
Radio
be
Road one year.
that's a great idea, man. We know some people. Why can't we get up there?
Right.
I bet we could, huh? I think we should do
We
that.
should.
The, well, we get a lot of cool guests on the show
We
if we did that. We
would.
could do it every day.
It's
Get
easy for
on
me to
there
pull
for.
some people over there like, hey, come over here and do this interview.
They would do that.
Yeah.
People would see you and they'd want to come talk to you because they know that you're gonna be you're gonna be at the cool parties.
Right.
You're gonna be with with some of the high profile
We had
people,
some
so
fun
they'd see you.
interviews.
That's right. That'd be a good idea. Well, it's in New Orleans this year.
Mhm.
Probably a little too late to make it happen, although you never know. So we'll talk to the people that believe, see if they can get us a spot on Radio Row. I don't even know where the Super Bowls are at, like in future years. I used to know that all the
I
time.
know it's like in Atlanta in like 2 years from now, and
Okay.
I forget where else, but I know Atlanta's coming back up too.
Yeah. So New Orleans will host the game. Hey, you played a Super Bowl in New
I
Orleans.
actually won the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
Yeah, man. That was the year the lights went out, which we've talked about
Well,
that.
what's
But
funny
Super
is I just seen recently they were saying how I think Trent Dilfer was 28 when he won his Super Bowl with the Ravens, their first one. Joe Flacco was 28 when he won his, and then Lamar
Okay.
Miller just turned 28 sometime this month. So it's like they're
Oh,
trying to say,
Lamar
I
Jackson.
mean, yeah,
Lamar
Lamar Jackson,
Jackson.
my bad. Lamar Jackson just
Yeah.
turned 28 sometime this month. So now they're trying to say, like, maybe is this the year for the Ravens? And what's funny is, ironically, it's back in New Orleans too. So,
Oh my gosh, that's right. Well, you saw how they looked in the wild card round, man.
yeah.
I mean, isn't it? It's a passing league,
Mhm.
but look, like the way the Ravens are able to move the line of scrimmage and run the ball, it's kind of fun to watch, isn't it?
No, it definitely is. And watching Henry play is very exciting too.
Oh God, yeah. Um, you know, you still got to do a good job of blocking, but
Mhm.
even if you aren't doing a great job, he'll still move the pile for you.
Mhm.
So that's a fun team to watch, and I think they're an easy team to cheer for. Um, uh, you know, John Harbaugh has been there a long time, and I have a lot of respect for the way he runs the show. It's kind of cool how some of those coaches, BMAC, they're kind of just like the CEOs. Like they don't necessarily call plays. Like Mike Tomlin's the same way too, right? Like I don't think he's calling every defensive play. They're
Mhm.
kind of running the whole team. Other coaches, like they're the offensive play caller. But
Mhm.
I kind of like it when a coach is sort of just like lording over the whole thing, doesn't get too involved in any one thing, but kind of has an influence on everything, you know?
I think that's how it should be. Like you hire certain people to do certain things. Like so you kind of can govern everything, as a whole,
Yeah.
and you have people in position to do, those jobs on offense and defense. You know what I mean? So to me,
Yep.
I feel like I always looked at the head coaches. That's what they're supposed to do. But I know some of them do take on the role as calling, the offense or the defense.
Yeah. 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 So anyway, I kind of find myself rooting for the Ravens. I think they're a fun team to watch, and they're easy to root for. I think Lamar is just, such a gregarious, easygoing, fun-loving type of guy. And like I said, I have a lot of respect for John Harbaugh, and the Ravens are a fun team. So it'll be fun to watch them here in the playoffs. On the NFC side, I think Detroit's the best team. I think, but I can see Philadelphia if they can get. Like Philadelphia's defense is really good, but their offense kind of is hit and miss.
Mhm.
But if they get going on offense, I think it's Philly or Detroit to me that comes out of the NFC. Who do you like in the NFC?
Okay. I know they were saying between the Rams and Philly, they have two good defenses, so that'll be a good matchup next week. Um,
Yeah,
Philly in the playoffs at home, they're pretty
yeah,
tough.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I could kind of see Philly pulling that out. So I do see that. I feel like it'll come down between Philly and Detroit as well.
I think so too. Yeah, and maybe Washington going to Detroit. I mean,
No.
I think Washington will have a hard time stopping Jaden Daniels, but I think Detroit will score a lot of points too.
Mhm.
So that'll be a fun one to watch. The future Super Bowl sites, BMAC, New Orleans this year, then it's San Francisco, LA, Atlanta.
Okay.
So Atlanta is
So
2028.
it
So
goes
you
back
got a
to
few years
LA
to get.
already because it was just in LA like a couple years ago.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's at SoFi in 2027. So
Okay.
that's 2 big years for you back to back, man. You got business out in LA and you got business in Atlanta. So that's 2 big years for
Right.
you. Yeah, man. I think those are the years we try to get Believe in Vikings out there. Have a
Absolutely.
party. All right, man. Well, let's get together and do this again next week. We can sort of set the stage. I don't think Vikings fans are ready to talk about the offseason yet. They got to mourn and be in misery for a little while. Those Vikings fans, man, they take it tough, and you can't
Yeah, because
blame
I just
them.
hate the fact that they had such a great season and they lost in the first round.
Man, that's terrible. It just 9 days ago we were talking about maybe being the number 1 seed.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
And now they're out, man. That's what I'm saying. The finality, it comes so fast and so
Mm-hmm.
sudden in the NFL, and that's part of the deal. But that's the way it goes. So next time you and I get together, BMAC, we'll talk a little bit about the offseason. I think I'll float a couple of ideas past you this week,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can collect your thoughts on them because I think the Vikings really got to take a hard look at the offensive line and figure out what kind of group can they have, and you've got some expertise in that area, so maybe you can give us some of your opinions on what might be a good match for the Vikings offensive line.
Okay.
So we'll tackle that, and then we'll take a look at if the Vikings lose any coaches, because defensive coordinator Brian Flores is being looked at by some teams for head coaching vacancies. So the Vikings may be in the market for a new defensive coordinator as well. So we'll tackle all of that next
Okay.
week. All right.
All right.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Believe in Vikings. On behalf of Bryant McKinnie, this is Mike Wobschall signing off for now. Until next time, everybody, keep believing.